Hello, my lovely grade 7 students. Welcome to StudyWave Academy, where education is without limits. Let's continue exploring our English subject, and we are majorly focusing on introduction of speech and the organs of speech. So, we've looked at these organs, we've looked at what speech is, and we've even looked at examples of these organ articulations and how they are used to produce sound or produce speech. And then I went ahead to show you this visual representation of the diagrams of speech. Okay, so I've visually shown you where these parts are found. I've shown you 3 different images, and then I ended by giving you a simple task to do, and this is our first activity, where still I'm expecting you to match every organ with its part. So if you're talking about the pharynx here or the oral cavity, come here. This image doesn't have any single word on it. It doesn't have, or it doesn't show where a certain part or a specific part is. So that is your task. You come here and show, or just use an arrow and then write beside the arrow then and name the part. So just use these names that I've given here. If you're not sure, you can always refer to our lesson. Okay, so now let's look at the organs of speech structure. So now we're looking at the organs of speech structure. Okay, so when we talk about the organs of speech structure, we've talked about the lungs. So at the bottom, so we're looking at the structure of the organs of speech. How do they arrange themselves? How are they arranged? So at the bottom of the diagram, you'd have 2 lungs, or 2 lung symbols, one on each side representing the source of the airflow of the speech. Now I said that the lungs is the source of the speech, or the source of the sounds that are produced. That is where the air comes from and helps shape sounds and different speech that we talked about. So at the bottom we have the lungs. Then from the lungs we move to the trachea, and the trachea is just a tube extending upwards from the lungs to represent the trachea, which connects the lungs to the larynx. Okay, so the trachea is just this tube. So from the lungs at the bottom, you move to the trachea and you show it in form of a tube that connects that lung to the larynx. Okay, so that is the presentation there. So from the lungs, you move to the trachea. Okay, then let's move on, and from the trachea you now move to the larynx, and the larynx, don't forget, is the voice box. Okay, this is the very important aspect, the voice box. So from the lungs at the bottom, you have this tube, which is the trachea, that connects the lungs to the larynx. Then here the larynx, it's just a structure located in the throat. Now in the throat you have the larynx, and the larynx is usually shaped like a box, or a cylindrical shape, or a cylindrical, or a cylinder in shape, to represent the larynx. So with the larynx you just show like a small box or a cylinder that will show or represent it, and it's found in the throat. Okay, so this is where the vocal cords are produced, and the vocal cords, we're talking about the pitch, the high pitch or the low pitch, they're produced here. Then from the larynx we move to the vocal cord. Okay, so from the larynx, which is the voice box, we move to the vocal cord. So 2 parallel lines within the larynx representing the vocal cord. So when you want to know the structure of the vocal cord, they're just the 2 lines within the larynx representing the vocal cord. These cords vibrate to produce sound. So with the larynx or the vocal cord, I talked about here as well, when the air hits this part, there's vibration of there's some vibration that comes out, and this vibration helps in creating the sound. Okay, then from the larynx, so we are from the larynx now, and we move to the vocal cord. So from there now we're still looking at the structure. Now we go to the oral cavity. So when I talked about the oral cavity, I talked about the lips, I talked about the tongue, I talked about the teeth, I talked about the hard and the soft palates. Okay, so the oral cavity is the area within the mouth, including the upper and the lower lip, the tongue, the teeth, and the hard and the soft palate. So from the vocal cord here, we move to the oral cavity. Okay, and this includes the lower and the upper lips, or just the lips in general. It also includes the tongue, the teeth, and the hard and the soft palates, okay? Then from the oral cavity, we move to the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity is above the oral cavity, and I think from our pictures we've seen it. Even look at our picture here. Let me show you a clear picture. So here we have the tongue here, or the lips is here. So this is the oral cavity. Look at it. So this part here, I want to show it out clearly. I want to show you out clearly. So I want to point it out. So let me get my pen here. So look at this part. This is the oral cavity. Okay. Then above it here, we have the nasal cavity. So notice that the oral cavity is below the nasal cavity, and the nasal cavity is above the oral cavity. So that's what we're talking about, our structure here. So with our structure, we have from the oral cavity, which includes the lower lip, the upper lip, so just the lips in general. From the lower or from the oral cavity, which includes the teeth, the lips, the hard and soft palates, we move to the nasal cavity, which is above the oral cavity. So you might depict the nasal passages, which leads to the nose. This area is crucial for sounds and involve nasal resonance. So here at the nasal cavity, there are also production of certain sounds, and we talked about sound n, sound m. So these sounds are produced in this nasal cavity. So basically, I'm talking about the structured note. I hope I've not lost anyone. Then now from the nasal cavity, we move to the pharynx, okay? So the pharynx is just like a tube or a tube-like structure connecting the oral and the nasal cavity, okay? Sorry, let me go back here. So with the pharynx, even you'd ask yourself, what connects the nose, or what connects the nasal cavity to the oral cavity? It's this pharynx. So the pharynx connects the oral and nasal cavities to the larynx, okay? And we talked about the larynx here. And what did you say the larynx is? It's just the voice box. So the voice box is connected by this tube we call the pharynx. So now, right now, I hope you're getting. So the voice box or the larynx is connected by a tube-like structure that connects the oral and the nasal cavity to the larynx. So the oral and the nasal cavity are connected to this larynx, and the larynx is the voice box. So we talked about some voices are produced in the oral cavity and some are produced in the nasal cavity. So when they're produced, they need to vibrate and be spoken out. Hence, they have to be vibrating in the larynx or the voice box. So that's why there's this connection. So I hope you're getting out the connection here. So the pharynx plays a role in directing the airflow and the speech. So we have class, notice something very funny here, or something very interesting here. So you see, we have the pharynx here. So the pharynx is this very, very important tube that connects the oral and the nasal cavity to the larynx. So I've talked about the larynx and the esophagus. So the larynx first is the voice box, okay? So the tube that connects this voice box to this oral and the nasal cavity is the pharynx. But the pharynx its importance is allowing or directing airflow and speech sounds. So we talked about some sounds are produced in the oral cavity and some are produced in the nasal cavity. So for example, the n sound, n sound, m, how will you know where they are going? So the pharynx directs the air, so it will direct the air to the nasal cavity and will produce the sound m, the sound n. But if you're talking about the sound p, the sound b, the sound t, the pharynx will direct this airflow to the oral cavity, and hence you will be able to produce this sound or this speech. So you get how they work together. Very, very simple. So after looking at this, now I will jump to another important topic that we need to look at, a very, very essential topic, and that is the pure vowel sounds. So what are pure vowel sounds? What are these pure vowel sounds? So pure vowel sounds are also known as monophthongs or monophthongs, okay? So these are speech sounds that have a single unchanging quality throughout their duration. They do not glide or shift in quality from one sound to another, making them distinct and easily distinctive. They are distinguishable. So pure vowel sounds are, so we talked about something known as diphthongs, monophthongs. Okay, so right now we're talking about monophthongs. Okay, so we talked about diphthongs, triphthongs. Okay, so class, in my past lectures or my past classes, in my past teachings, I widely talked about diphthongs, I widely talked about triphthongs. Okay, so right now I'm talking about monophthongs. Okay, so I talked about diphthongs being these words that have two vowel sounds following each other, and triphthongs are these words that have three vowel sounds following each other. Now we're talking about monophthongs. So when you hear the word mono, what comes to your mind? So mono means one. So here they just have a single vowel sound. So you get the difference. It's very, very easy to understand these things if you are part of my former classes or the past classes, because all this that I'm talking about somehow connects to each other, and they will need the reasoning from the past or the readings from the past to help you work this out. Okay, so with pure vowel sounds, they are typically represented by a single symbol in the International Phonetic Alphabet. International Phonetic Alphabet. So here are the examples of the pure sounds or the pure vowel sounds, along with their meanings and explanations. So again, if you were part of my former lessons, right now we'll be talking about phonetic awareness, and even we know what phonemes are, or so we know what phonics are, what phonemes are, because I've already taken you through this class. Okay, so with the phonetic alphabets, these are just, we talked about phonemes being just sounds. Okay, so they're these pure vowel sounds, they're just represented by one symbol in the International Phonetic Sound. Okay, so now let's look at some examples of these pure vowel sounds. So after we look at these examples, I think we will be able to understand what we are really talking about today. So pure vowel sounds are typically represented by a single symbol in the International Phonetic Alphabet, which allows for precise and consistent transition of sounds across languages. So I've talked about that monophthongs are just they're represented by single symbol in the International Phonetic Alphabet, and this allows them to be precise and consistent in transcription of sounds and across any language. Okay, so these vowel sounds serve as the basic building blocks of the spoken language. So these vowel sounds we're talking about, they serve as the basic building blocks of the spoken language and are essential. They are important for clear and accurate pronunciation. There are various pure vowel sounds found in the languages, and their precise number of quality can vary. Some common examples of pure vowel sounds include, so before I look at these examples of pure vowel sounds, do you really understand what pure vowel sounds are? So I've talked about these single represented vowels in words, and they are the building blocks of the spoken language because they're essentials, or they're essential for providing clear and accurate pronunciation. So these pure vowel sounds just help us pronounce words and just pick out words. So do you really get the meaning of these pure vowel sounds? So let's now look at the examples, and if you don't understand these examples, will help us analyze what these pure vowel sounds are. So I will, before I go into examples and take you through these examples, I hope you can now understand what pure vowel sounds are. Okay, so I'll just tell that these pure vowel sounds, they're also known as the monophthongs. Okay, we talked about the diphthongs, the triphthongs. Okay, and these are just sounds that have two vowel sounds or three vowel sounds or one vowel sounds. Very, very simple and easy to understand. So the monophthongs are the basic building blocks of the spoken language, because they are essential or very important when we want to understand or pronounce words and sounds. So we have various sounds found in different languages, and there are very, very many, and that's what we're going to be learning today. And I'll look at examples for us to understand.